Just do briefing
Yes, you're right on.
We're streaming a couple of and also we're recording so if you just stand about where do you out? Just want to just do a couple laps and
marching?
Yeah, okay.
That's fine.
Sure, yeah.
All right, the floor is yours. Assemblywoman Bonnie Lowenthal. Hey, wait a minute. Oh, bring your security. Oh, that's me, I forgot. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chris, and to all of you. I'm really delighted to speak to you tonight. I know so many of you. I've worked with you through the years. I think you know what I stand for, what I fight for. I think we all actually fight for the same thing. And a lot of you know my partner, Evan Browdy. Wave.
Hey, former city council member.
You know, it's important to have a long history here in Long Beach. And looking at Evan, I want to share with you that what the Senate passed today, which was so earth-shaking, was an ordinance that Evan did when he was on the city council here in Long Beach.
Starting in Long Beach. All right.
Wow. So I bring that up because I think my history here is really important. I've been here for almost 45 years, lifelong Democrat, very active in the Democratic Party. My first club actually was Lambda back in the early 80s. And so I became very connected to the LGBT community and all of the issues that we fought for in those days. It was bad in Long Beach. I don't know how many of you were here, but it was rough and tough. There were many, many hate crimes all the time. There was no recognition of the community. And so we've made a lot of progress since then. But I moved on to the added, I don't want to say I moved on, I added the Long Beach Democratic Club. And over the years, I became very active in Long Beach politics. What we needed at that time was to have district elections for the city of Long Beach, because that didn't exist. So we worked hard, many of us who you've heard of Lavachi, we worked for district elections for the city of Long Beach, we worked for district elections for the school board, for the community college, and we really changed the shape of Long Beach. We changed the shape of Long Beach by many of those early activities. So I guess the first thing I want to say to you is that your activism is crucial to continue being on a progressive path. But because I was so active in the city and I worked with many nonprofits, the Community Improvement League, the Centro de la Raza, LULAC, Cambodian community, teaching at some of the local colleges, I was asked to run for the Board of Education. I had no plans whatsoever to be in politics. The two classes that I dropped when I was in college were political science, I'm not kidding, this is true, and psychology. And what did I become? Psychotherapist, became a politician. That's just the way it is the same thing. It is. You have to be a listener. That's the most important quality, I think, to have, because really elected officials represent you, and everything they do should come from you, and that's what I try to do. So I was on the school board for almost 8 years, and during that time we implemented the school uniform policy. We were the first in the nation to do that. In fact, we really became the finest urban school district in America, received that prize. We won it one year, and then we runner-up a couple of years, but it's really extraordinary for an urban district. And then I was asked to run for city council. Again, something I'd never really considered, but living in the downtown area for 19 years, a lot of needs in the downtown neighborhoods, and you understand that well. And the schools can't address those community issues. So I took on the city council. I was vice mayor for 2 years, and it was an exciting time. I added lots of parks. I added affordable housing. I got done many ordinances. I added the words transgender to those early ordinances that Evan actually had for non-discrimination. Initially it was LGBT, so we did add that. And I felt that it was a very successful time for me. I never planned on running for state assembly, literally. Patrick O'Donnell was going to run, and so I thought I was going to be there and support him. And he ended up coming to me and said, Bonnie, it's not my time, it's your time. Kids were little, whatever the reasons were. So a number of people asked me to run, and I took it seriously, and I had to think about, why would I do this? Obviously, I did it, and it's just been an amazing 5 years. The first 4 with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then I got to tell you, this was a man who never talked to anybody. He had escorts, the highway patrol, in and out of the Capitol.
Across the street to get lunch.
He never came to our caucus. You know, it was just a terrible time. But worse than the man was all the cuts that we had to make. Because my whole life has been about working for underserved populations. That's just been my whole life. That's my DNA. That's who I am. That's who I always will be. And all we did those first 4 years was cut, cut, cut. I mean, we cut the elderly and the disabled and kids and education and the universities and the court system, and everybody lost access to justice, and it was just a terrible time. Got a lot of bills passed, many of them very significant, breath of fresh air, Governor Brown, Prop 30, no 132, Prop 30, and really he's been a wonderful, level-headed governor. He's admired by both parties, and he's been very fair. This last year has been a banner year for me. I've had 12 bills signed, only 1 vetoed, 1 joint author. That was the rape bill, closing the loophole in the rape bill, which I did with a Republican colleague. We joint authored that. And I've been the chair of transportation for 4 years now, chair of the Women's Caucus, and I could go on and on. This summer, Bob Foster said he wasn't going to run again. And that was a shock. I mean, I'm sure to you as well as to me. I was shocked. So I, once again, was drafted. And my family gave me a lot of support because, you know, had they said no, you know, no, don't do this. I'm in my last term. I have 1 more year to go. 1 more season of developing legislation. Very important legislation, I might add. We all fall in love with our bills. But I gave it serious thought before I agreed to run for mayor. And I came around to the decision that I'm passionate about Long Beach. I didn't know what I was going to do when I came back. And I said, just like, you know, serendipity has always worked in my favor. Something happens. And this is happening. So I am running. My polling is tops. I'm getting a huge number of endorsements. I know there's a lot of work to do. Sometimes you can boil it down to some simple words, you know, public safety and education and infrastructure, and all of that is important. All we have to do is walk out on our streets or drive the roads or see the curbs that aren't painted and they're broken. And, you know we need to do those things. We know we've lost police officers. We know we don't have enough support for fire. But, it really goes beyond that. It goes to the individuals, the families, the working families. 70% of the kids in our school district are on free and reduced lunch. 70%. We have a big poverty problem. And you know what, folks? We are Democrats. That's what we worry about. We worry about working people. And we have to make this city a place where people can thrive. And we do it by improving the economy, by attracting business, attracting technology, supporting the ports. What I'd like to do now is just let you know that I'm a leader that's gotten things done. I've been in leadership during my years in the Assembly. I want to be a leader here. I look forward to working with you, and what I'd like to do is just answer your questions.
Okay, great, thank you.
What would you say is the number one thing you could do about the poverty issue? Because I do think that's something even nationwide we're really facing. And what could we do right here in Long Beach that could make a difference?
First of all, we have to acknowledge it as a city, that there are people who struggle every day. And I'm going to put homelessness aside because that's a separate part of the issue. We have to create good middle-class jobs. You know, we just raised the minimum wage, as I'm sure you followed. We can't expect people who flip hamburgers to support a family. We have to create jobs. We have to have training for those jobs. We have to have higher standards in education. You know, it's interesting. When I was on the school board, we developed plans to stop social promotion because we can't afford to have kids get out of school. Excuse my back, I totally just stand here. Yeah, and you know, we would not pass kids on if they didn't meet certain benchmarks, 3rd grade, 5th grade, 8th grade. And they would have to go to summer school, and they'd have to reach those benchmarks. Well, guess what? The recession, the Great Recession, summer school, no summer school. So the kids have been faltering. And Long Beach Unified is trying its hardest. We are better than many, better than most. You know, they've gotten rid of most of the administrators. They've really done a yeoman's job, considering there is no money. But, you know, we have to get kids to the point of being capable of getting that job. So we need to do a lot more work at training at all levels, at education at all levels, at getting kids into community college and finding them jobs. It's all about the jobs.
Question about the breakwater. You know, there's a lot of discussion about this now, and it's like a 3-part question. I don't want to overdo it, but basically you've got the issue of the possible increase in tourism and benefits of having fresher water with wave action, that sort of thing, along the coast. You have the concerns of the residents about inundation.
Right.
But then you have the other issue that I don't see linked in these conversations, and that's climate change. Because we're going to have, over the next 10, 20 years, an increase in the level of the ocean that's going to jeopardize those homes with or without breakwater. And, you know, we should maybe start talking about a great earthwork project like in Amsterdam or New Orleans with pumps and bulwarks. I'm serious, to protect our port and oil area. That's the 3rd part.
No, that's absolutely great. 2 weeks ago, let me think, when was it? October 25th. I held a hearing at the aquarium in the auditorium there. Very, very well attended. Wasn't it great? It was fascinating. It was fascinating and worrisome at the same time. So I had both ports give their, let us know about what programs they were working on for sea level rise. And interestingly, they were working separately. They are now, because of that hearing, going to start to work together. But it is happening, and my first thought, of course, was to get the breakwater that I...
Hey! There's nobody out there, the bell is on its own. The house is haunted. By a Republican, obviously.
When I was on the council, I was one of the prime movers
Vinny, everybody.
of a breakwater study. Really pushed for that. So it's been going on a long time. And, we fought to get Army Corps funding to do this study. We actually had somebody else do a computer analysis and simulation, so people don't have to go to Vicksburg, Mississippi, and have the actual layout of the breakwater. But because of climate change and because of sea level rise, which is a real thing, I think it's a half a meter in the next 20 years and a meter, almost 2 meters over 50 years. I would want to see those studies again. My hope is that I still hope we can reconfigure the breakwater. But with sea level rise, those studies have to be looked at a second time. So the sea level rise, another thing is that when I called our water department to testify at the hearing, they had not really done their own studies yet of sea level rise. And what you have to worry about is, we have water storage, right? The sea level intrusion goes underneath the ground and hits the aquifers, the water table. So it's very, very, very complicated. I mean, we have to be so vigorous in our work about climate change, just as the ports have been involved with the Clean Air Action Plan, and I'm involved on a national level, the National Freight Advisory Commission, to find more zero emission conveyances. We just have to do everything we can to reduce our carbon footprint.
Great, thank you.
I got a question.
There's a question here.
Okay.
Hi there,
Bonnie. Hey, I have a question about the toll.
One of our vice presidents.
Yeah. Okay. There she is. There's Maria.
Hey, I have a question about the so-called Lexus lane on the 110 freeway. Why do we need that?
That's very controversial, and that both the 110 and the 10 have those lanes, and it's called congestion pricing. That's the official name for it. The money that is paid, I have one of those transponders in my car. The money that comes out of that goes for transit. The theory is, and it's yet to be evaluated, the theory is that everybody needs to get someplace faster. So if you allow some people to get out of the regular lanes who are willing to pay for it, it frees up those other lanes. There's always been a question about folks who have low incomes who can never afford to pay $10 to go from Gardena to downtown LA.
Like myself.
Yeah.
And other people that don't really have a very long
Well,
commute.
Chris said what he said is interesting. That's what the blue line is for. That's what rapid buses are for. So there's not enough money coming in for all the transportation needs that we have. The highway trust fund is broke. We don't have money to fix our highways. We're scrambling to find ways. People don't want to add to the vehicle license fee. You know, people don't want to add to what we pay for gas tax, 41 cents. I think it is for state gas tax and 18 cents for federal gas tax. But, and we have electric vehicles, zero emission vehicles. So, which is,
I have one.
yes,
Drive for free in the Lexus lane.
which is great, which is great for climate change, right? And reduces the need for foreign oil, but you are not paying for the gas tax.
Yeah.
And so how do we get highways and roads?
Out of her.
So it's, you know, that was the theory, Maria. The theory was that the toll lanes would help to pay for more transit and that all of us should be using more transit, more bike lanes, and become
Is this
less.
still in a situation where it can be changed? Like, could
Yes,
people
I think
protest
that
and say,
is-
you know what, it's not working?
No, I think that is, and that's what.
Well, how do you feel about that? What do you think if people got together and said, you know, this isn't working? If you drive this freeway on a Friday afternoon, you can see that everything on the right-hand side or the left-hand side is totally congested, and only the so-called Lexus lane, you see a car, and you know, how would you line up with that?
It's a demonstration project.
Yeah.
It will be reevaluated.
Yeah, it is going to be reevaluated. The same thing is on the 10 freeway. So the MTA.
How do you feel about that? I mean, how would you stand on that?
Well, I would have to see the evaluation. I would have to see that evaluation. I need to see who's riding, who's not riding. If the money is truly going to transit, has it built transit for people who really need it? That's what I would have to see. What is really worrying me, so I can't say without seeing the real program evaluation. What worries me now is that there's talk of doing the same thing from the Long Beach border through Orange County. And that it sounds terrible to me because it means that we will have another Orange Crush.
It's not a privatization, is it? Is it a government program or is it private?
No, it's not a privatization.
Not a toll road,
It
no.
would be government.
Already bad on the 405 with the construction.
But
Okay.
thank you for the question.
Susan's
Really
had her hand
important
up for a minute.
question.
I've only lived here a certain number of years. I'm not really familiar as much as I would like to be with everything, but I have a sense that there's the downtown plan and there's a competition, like a balance needed between development for jobs and housing for a moderate income, lower income, and retaining, I don't know if retaining the older structures is part of that. Any feelings of the balance? You know, someone could be all pro-development, someone could be all for housing for the poor, lower income people. Sounds like you might have both working for.
Well, you need it. I think you're on the right track. I think we're thinking the same. You need a jobs housing balance. That's what I believe. When I was on the city council, I brought in a number of affordable housing complexes. For example, when you drive out 3rd Street to get onto the 710, right across from Cesar Chavez School, there's a beautiful building, Puerto del Sol. That was one that I brought in. There's another one on 16th and Pacific. The ones that were just completed on Anaheim, those beautiful senior apartments. Have you seen that? West of Long Beach Boulevard. I did another one on Pine.
That was senior.
The one on Pine, no. The one on Pine was a variety of home ownership opportunities. Exactly. And not only that, what they absolutely won't do is supportive housing for people who with mental illness, which we need terribly.
Right.
We need more supportive housing. So I think one thing that this city has not had the guts to do is inclusionary zoning. And you know that inclusionary zoning means that whatever is built will have a certain percentage of affordable units.
And it works, and it has worked successfully.
Yeah.
Los Angeles has
And
it.
parking places. You may have noticed tonight, it's a little hard to park in Long Beach.
You want subterranean right in your house?
Well, that's the question about parking places. And we're the same. We live over in Carroll Park, so, it's the same deal. For these new buildings, shouldn't there be incentives to have fewer cars and more bikes and more car sharing? So I don't know that we need more cars. I think, we need to be looking at the future.
And so in terms of development, sort of the other end of it, do you envision like more businesses that would bring jobs there, or luxury condos, or?
Well, I think we need all kinds of housing. And we certainly need business, who brings up the economy, but we need jobs for everyone at all levels. We absolutely do, and we need housing at all levels. And I don't believe in developing the downtown at the expense of the rest of Long Beach.
Right.
So we need to take care of our neighborhoods.
Okay, what would you do to, you made a comment relative to instigating business to come into Long Beach, and then relative to instigating business to come into Long Beach, and then for those of us that are developers, builders, such as myself, what would you do as an incentive there? But then as Susan kind of commented, I'm commercial, from the commercial aspect, and I'd say one of my references is second to PCH. But then you have the environmentalist, which I'm as well. I'm kind of split down the middle. And to satisfy the environmentalist, but
Yes.
then to instigate developers to come in and then satisfy the environmentalists and then have some kind of compromise there. But what would you do initially to instigate businesses to come in, and then to allow to build what they need?
Have zoning regulations and have somebody apply and meet all those regulations and then be turned down. That's just not fair.
I agree with you on that.
That is not fair. So I think we have to stop seeing business and environment as adversaries. Meet together more often, go down a common path, because we are on a common path. We're not adversaries. We can't do one without the other. We can't.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'm just like you.
Shannon.
Yeah, I was wondering if you, in regards to the working poor, would you support a measure that would have a living wage for people who work in the tourist industry, like at the airport and the convention center?
Absolutely, of course I would. We just raised the minimum wage, in Sacramento. And when I was on the city council, I initiated the first labor peace ordinance. It was for the hotel workers. I worked with Unite Here. I actually got it past the city council. I think it was 2005 or 6. I was so excited. And then, unfortunately, we went, it was the year that we had propositions 74, 75, 76, which we were all fighting against. It was Mr. Schwarzenegger's.
Right.
And so there was a group that fought my labor peace ordinance, the Hospitality Coalition, all the hotels. They fought it, right? Because they didn't want the workers to organize. They didn't want to pay any more money. It was going to be the end of the world. So it was going to go then on the ballot because they got signatures, Chamber of Commerce, Hospitality Coalition. It was going to go on the ballot to oppose the labor peace ordinance. Unite Here said because of those propositions, they didn't have the money or the bodies to work with us, even though it was their labor peace ordinance. 74, 75, and 76 would have just decimated unions and organized labor. So we had to rescind the labor peace ordinance. It was tragic. And at any rate, fortunately, this past year, everything went on the ballot and things are looking good for hotel workers right now. Except for the Hilton, which we don't go to the Hilton. No, we don't. It's terrible. They'll come around. They will come around. So I think doing that, the amazing thing to me is, God bless Steve Neal. He brought it up at the last couple of council meetings, and it passed fairly easily. So that we'll have the airport and the convention center workers. Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Bonnie, how are you feeling about the 710 expansion and the alternatives that the community's asking for?
Oh my gosh. I've been working on that for so long. I love what the community is asking for. I love the bike lanes, I love the bike paths. There were all kinds of plans that predated any kind of building of the 710 that would improve the air quality, that would make the neighborhoods better, all up and down the 19 miles or whatever it is of the 710. I think what's unfortunate is they haven't figured out what technology to use for the trucks. So, can they have driverless trucks? Can they avoid putting any trucks on the freeway? The rail yard is proposed. That rail yard is really harmful to West Long Beach. I've been opposed to the rail yard since they came into my office in 2005 or 6, whatever it was. I was horrified because number one, they're not going to have 1,000 clean trucks to carry the containers from the port to this rail yard. They won't have that many clean trucks for, 10 or 20 years. Number two, what about the roads? What about the existing businesses in West Long Beach? What about the schools in West Long Beach? So I've been opposed to that plan. I think, the city has sued. I'm sure they're waiting for some kind of mitigation. And it's not in my hands now. But the goal is, if and when it's rebuilt, it's got to have all those amenities that the community has asked for because they deserve it.
What was your before the 710? Was it Santa Fe?
Pardon me?
Any trucks coming down Santa Fe and Alameda before the freeway?
I honestly don't. There were containers when the 710 was built.
That's right.
Containers only came in the
Later on,
later on. So I am currently, maybe Stella knows this, I'm currently on the National Trade Advisory Committee appointed by the Secretary of Transportation. And I co-chair the Committee on Safety, Security, and the Environment. And so we are now working on recommendations for the Department of Transportation and Congress. And I am particularly interested in the environment piece and zero emission vehicles and so on.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Yeah, always good to see you.
Any other questions on Cover California? You are involved with them, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so are we. We're looking at a contract.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mr. Dahl.
You're looking at yourself now.
Good night, you guys.
Yeah.
Well, I've been trying to.
Good night.
Hey, you can talk to her.
I still doubt. And,
Good night.
so many
Good night. Bye-bye.